In this video, I'd like to show you what Pixie3D is and how to use it. If you never heard of Pixie3D, it's a 3D modeling tool to create 3D assets and content for games and animations, etc. At the moment, it's for Windows platforms only, and you can download it for free at pixie3d.com. Once you've started on Pixie3D, you'll be met with a screen like this. At the top, you'll see a main menu that allows you to manage files, open files, save files, select objects in your scene, manipulate objects in your scene, etc. At the left, you have a menu that allows you to create primitives such as planes, cubes, spheres, etc. You'll use these primitives for more advanced modeling when you go into polygon modeling and that kind of thing. At the center of the screen, you have the viewport. This one allows you to look into your 3D scene and you can see your objects. And this is the one that you'll be working with most of the time. It's important that you familiarize yourself how to navigate the viewport. Right mouse button allows you to rotate the view. Middle mouse button allows you to pan the view. And left mouse button allows you to select individual objects. And the mouse wheel allows you to zoom in and out. If you're used to a different method to navigate the viewport from a different software, or you just prefer a different settings, you can go to the System tab, and there's a whole section for changing shortcuts and bind mouse buttons and keys to different functionalities. One thing which is worth noticing is that even though it looks like there's only one viewport available in Pixie3D, it does support multiple viewports. In the right-hand corner, you will be able to see there's a resize icon. Click on that one, and you can see the other viewports. It's also worth noticing that each viewport have their own little menu. Most of these are display options. There is an option to see if you want to see the world grid or not. You can also get a little drop-down list that allows you to change the different views. At the very bottom of that list, you'll see there's a UV edit, and that one allows you to go in and edit texture coordinates, etc. Most of the time, I tend to use just one viewport because by nature, it gives me more screen space to work with. On your right, you'll see a menu that changes depending on what objects you have selected. When you have no objects selected in your scene, you'll get access to the scene and system settings. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see two small tabs. One is Material tab, and the other one is Texture tab, where material is highlighted by default. That one clearly contains all the materials you have in your scene. If you select one of these materials, you'll see the right menu change, and you'll see all the properties available for this specific material, and you can change them, play around with them, change color, etc. And if you want to use this material at any point, you can just drag and drop this one on top of any selected objects in your scene. The Texture tab works exactly the same way. Clearly, instead of materials, it just has textures. Before we move on, I would like to show you how to load image files from your local hard drive and use them as textures in your scene. You can do this in two ways. You can drag and drop the image files from Windows Explorer directly into your scene like this. Or you can load the image file by using the Open File dialog from the main menu. At the top of the File dialog, click on the Image tab and locate the image file and just simply click Open. And you'll see it has been added to a new texture slot. Right, so now you know a little bit about how the interface works and where the different things are. So how about we create an object? Let's just start from the top and create a plane. All you have to do is just activate the plane create button. And in the viewport, anywhere, just hold down your left mouse button and drag it across, and you'll see a 3D surface appear. When you are happy with the size of your plane, you just simply let go of the mouse button and you've created your first 3D plane. So once you have created your plane, you may have noticed on the right menu has changed. So you can see all the properties for your plane. There are segments and there are dimensions. You can type in the different values for any of these. At the bottom, there's UV texture codes. You'll only be able to see the differences if you have a texture applied to that. In order to create a 3D box, it's exactly the same procedure as when you created the plane. Hold down left mouse button anywhere in the viewport and drag across in order to define the base of your box. Once you're happy with the size of your base, just let go of the mouse button and you'll notice that now you can adjust the height of the box. And once you are happy with that, just left mouse button and you have created your 3D box. Again, you will notice that on the right menu has changed to show you all the properties for your box, and no big surprise, you can change all the properties for that as well. In order to move, rotate, and scale your selected objects, just select the transformation tools in your main menu. By default, the select tool is highlighted. So in order to move it, you just activate the move tool and you'll see this colorful gizmo appearing in your viewport. You can use that one for moving your objects in different directions. And you'll notice at the center of the gizmo, there are some yellow planes as well. If you use those ones to move your object, you can move your objects more fluently. So rather than move them individually in different directions, you can move them in two directions at the same time, which become quite handy now and then. The same thing for if you want to rotate, activate the rotation tool in the main menu, and you'll see the gizmo slightly change. And now you can rotate around different axes. The same thing for the scale. You'll just activate the scale tool in your main menu, and you can scale in different directions. And there's a small addition to the scale tool. You'll see at the bottom of your screen, there's a small checkbox saying uniform. If you select that one, you will see, first of all, it's turning pink, and that indicates that now instead of scaling your object in individual axes, you now scale the object in in a uniform way. That's what I'm trying to say. Just remember to untick that one if you want to scale them individually. Next to the transformation tools in the main menu, there is a transformation option as well. By default, that is set to local. And what that means is that the transformation, you see the gizmo is following the object no matter how I'm rotating it. It always follows the object itself. If I change that to global instead, you'll see the gizmo is changing slightly. And now it's in a global mode and it will follow the global transformation space. Now, this is quite important to know because sometimes it's really, really handy to use global transformation, and other times it's probably most of the time you will probably use local, but just keep that in mind. Next to the transformation mode in the main menu, there is an interesting feature called orbit mode. By default, this is set to world, which means that the view will be orbited around the absolute zero. This feature also allows you to orbit the view around any selected object. And in polygon mode, the view can be orbited around any selected polygons. You probably noticed that at the bottom of your screen, there's numbers changing constantly. This one allows you to type in a specific coordinates. So if you want your object in a different position in your scene, you can just type in the coordinates for that. And the same for if you want to rotate, you can type in the specific if you need like really accurate angles, like 45 degrees exactly or something like that, you can type in manually. Now that we know the most basic things about Pixie3D, it'll be fun to get more into polygon modeling. So you probably noticed on the right menu, There's a button saying Edit Geometry. If you click on that one, that will give you access to the different modeling tools. And the first one is vertices. That one opens up all the tools that you can do with the vertices. There's edges, and there is triangles and polygon and elements. The triangle, polygon, and elements are exactly the same thing. Apart from that, for the triangle, you'll obviously be able to select specific triangles individually. The polygons, whatever defined polygon will be selected. And if you have more elements in your object, you can use element to easily select the different elements. One of the modeling tools that I use quite a lot is the extrude tool. So if you select some polygons and you activate the extrude tool, you'll see there's like a blue pen or gizmo appearing in your viewport. You can use that for extruding your selected polygons in or out. And as you probably could imagine, this is really, really powerful. You can use it for creating windows or doors in a wall or anything really. You can create arms and legs on a creature with just extruding polygons out. This is the tool I'm using most of the time. So really get used to that one. It's really, really handy. Another tool which is quite useful is the cut tool. Activate the cut tool and you'll be able to select anywhere on your geometry and just left click to define the start point, and you'll see there's a red line appearing, and then anywhere on your geometry define the end point, and you'll see when you do that there's a line appearing, and you can see now it has created more geometry. That is really, really handy for defining some sections of your geometry. So at the moment, the cut tool is not perfect. There are some small flaws with it, so just be aware of that. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to define the start and end points, and other times it creates extra vertices and stuff like that. So just be aware of that. If you find yourself in a situation where you would like to delete some vertices, you can do it in two ways. One way, select the vertices tools, and you'll find a button that says weld or merge, that is, and select the vertex that you'll want to get rid of and drag it on top of a nearby vertex, and those two should merge. You can also just hit delete in the main menu or the delete on your keyboard, and that should get rid of it as well. You'll notice that the vertex tools also has a button that says extrude, and you can extrude a vertex and you'll see like some sort of spike. Again, you can extrude it in or out. That depends whatever you need to do. There is also a chamfer tool for vertex. So if you select a vertex and chamfer it, you'll see this blue gizmo thing again, and you can see it sort of cuts off corners. So that can be quite handy as well. And there's also a soft selection, so you can select an entire group of vertices at the same time, but with different weights. So that is really good for like if you want to model more organic objects. So let's have a quick look at the edge tools. Oh yeah, that's something I forgot to say. If you want to select more than one group, either edges or vertices or polygons, hold down Control key and you can select more than one. And I think Alt is for if you want to subtract elements in your selection. This can take quite a long time if you want to select individually edges like this. There's a small checkbox here that says loop selection. And if you double click on any edge, it will try to find a loop and it will select that for you. So that can save quite a lot of time. And then You can turn edges, you can divide edges. When you divide an edge, you'll see it probably doesn't look like it's doing anything, but if you go to your vertices, you can see, oh, it actually did create a vertex there. So just be aware of that. So I've gone through a lot of modeling tools really quickly. They really deserved a lot more time and explanation than what I've done in this video. But this video is more meant to be like a quick guideline how to get started with the Pixie3D sort of thing rather than a fully explained video. So I'm going to leave polygon modeling for now. Hopefully you have picked up some ideas of how to do polygon modeling in 3D. Please don't shy away from play around with the features and see what actually you can come up with yourself. At this point, I would like to show you some other features in Pixie3D, also modeling features called modifiers. In order to do that properly, I'm just going to delete these objects that are created and create some new ones. You may have noticed that when you select an object, in the right menu at the very top, there is a section called modifiers. I haven't browsed on that section at all so far. This is where you will manage all your modifiers. In order to understand modifiers and what they do, you could think of it as being a component which is being added on top of your geometry. So this component will try, depending on the properties of the modifier, will try to deform your geometry into a specific shape. If you open the drop-down list box for modifiers, you'll see there's a whole list of different modifiers available. All of these modifiers have been named depending on what shape that they are trying to achieve. So if we pick this modifier called bend, it will try to bend the geometry around a specific axis that you can choose from. What really makes modifiers so powerful is the flexibility that comes with them. All of the modifiers have their own parameters and properties that you can set, but at no point the geometry is being permanently affected. You can like change the parameters at any time, and you can, on top of that, you can add modifiers on top of each other. You can rearrange them, and that gives you so much variety and flexibility, which can be really crucial and important for some tasks. Not all modifiers change the geometric shape of an object. Some modifiers are focused on changing the texture coordinates. This one here is, you need to use that one for editing texture coordinates manually. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I showed you there were like some viewport settings, and the very last one is one called UV editor, is right here. And now you can go in and you can change the texture coordinates manually. Another texture focused modifier is this one. This modifier will try to project texture coordinates using simple primitives. So not always you will need to go in and edit texture coordinates manually. Sometimes you can get away with just projecting texture coordinates. So if we go back to the geometric modifiers, there's a modifier which is worth pointing out. I use it really a lot. It's a subdivision modifier, which works really well with polygon modeling actually. So instead of spending time on model like really high resolution models, I tend to model more low polygon models, and then I'll add a subdivision modifier on top of it to sort of smoothen it out and give it a lot of details. Let me show you the subdivision on model that I have created. I'm just gonna open it up. And if I add the subdivision modifier on this one here, you can see that when I spin around here, that is actually a low poly model. So if I bump this number up here, then you will see Now it's being added, there's being added a lot more geometry to it, and it's smoothing it out and looks like a really high resolution model. But be really careful not to bump this value up. Do not do not be tempted to set it to 100 or something like that. It will take ages for it to subdivide. I usually have it around 2 or 3, max 4. So please, yeah, be careful with that. Otherwise, it's just gonna sit there and work forever. Let me show you another example of how to use modifiers. I'm just gonna open this file here. As you can see, it's a chair, which is made up by just simple boxes. And each of these boxes have a modifier on top of them. Most of them are the bent modifier. I'm just going to show you that flexibility I was talking about earlier, why it is so powerful. If I go in and choose the box here, and I can just add the segments, go back, and you'll see now this part of the chair is much higher resolution. So you can see the flexibility here. It's really, really powerful. You can change the resolution of pretty much any objects just by doing that. A perfect example of how to use modifiers. Pixie3D has a plugin which is called OBJ, and that one exports to the OBJ format. If you go to the save dialog, at the very top there, you will see some tabs, and the one of the last one, that one allows you to save it to OBJ. So just for demonstration purpose, it's going to do that now, and there you go. Now you have an OBJ file that you can use into, I don't know, games in general or whatever it is. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you found it useful, and I really hope that it could help you to get started with using Pixie3D. And I spent a lot of time on creating Pixie3D, and it's been fun. I am still developing on it, and hopefully I will always be working on Pixie3D. Keep in mind that this software is a sort of hobby project of mine, so there's not a big, massive team behind Pixie3D. It's just simply me sitting and developing. But a lot of features are not public yet. There's keyframe animation, rendering particles, cameras, and a lot of good stuff which is not public yet because it hasn't been tested. So I'm really looking forward to show you some new videos in the future that will show all that. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching.